I spent the majority of my 20s in New York City. I went there for college. I ended up working there, and I just loved the city. I couldn't see myself living or working anywhere else. I was just always ready to go to the next thing. My energy was always just like high and ready to do whatever needed to be done. And it wasn't until I left and I moved to Arizona where I realized, if I never go back here, that would be okay. And it was kind of weird because my lifestyle now is just so different. Now I live at the base of a mountain range in the middle of nowhere. And instead of being in the concrete jungle, I go into the desert almost every day. And I just feel so much more relaxed. And I want to talk to you about that today, how our outer environment can just really impact our wellness. And I wanted to bring that up with you today, how our environment outside of our home environment, outside of our social media environment, but really where we are in the world has such a big impact on our overall wellness. So I wanted to give you my perspective and I wanted to give you somebody else's. So I'm bringing back my friend Hannah Hudson, who also relocated to Arizona within the past few years. She was coming out here from Washington State. So you're going to get both of our perspectives on what it's been like going from two completely different starting points to Arizona, how that has impacted us. So grab a cup of coffee and get ready to tune in. Hannah, do you think that relocating to Arizona has impacted your overall health and wellness?
Absolutely.
How?
When you talk about like the gloom and seasonal depression, I didn't realize how bad it actually was until I moved away. So you almost like when you're in it, you almost tell yourself it's not that bad. You're like, it's not that bad. And especially in Seattle, the gloom is so dark. It gets dark at like 4 p.m. in the wintertime as well, along with never seeing the sun. And then when you see the sun, you're just like, oh, I made it through. Like you finally did 9 months in basically hibernation. But then when you moved to Arizona, you were like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I did that for 30 years. Like I cannot, because I told everyone multiple times, I was like, I'm going to leave Seattle. I can't do this anymore. And I kept saying it and saying it and saying it. And once I finally sold the gym and I didn't have to be there, we moved away. And I was like, this is the best decision I've ever made.
I think it was the best decision I ever made as well. When I came out here, I remember the first week it felt like vacation. Because,
Oh,
typically
two
when I,
weeks.
2 weeks, okay. So I felt like, wow, I'm really on vacation because anytime I would travel somewhere, I would typically go to like a beach where it's sunny
Yeah.
and it's warm. And then 1 week turned into 2 weeks, into 3 weeks, into 4 weeks, where it just felt like, is,
Yeah.
is this okay? Is this appropriate? Like people actually live this way. They feel
No.
like they're actually on vacation. It was so strange to me to think that I've been missing out on living in a beautiful and warm climate up until age 30.
No, it's crazy. It's so weird to live in a vacation destination. And we moved right in March, which is like perfect weather here, and we had a pool. And the first 2 weeks, it was like really bad. I was like, okay, I got to get into a routine because I was laying by the pool. I was drinking alcohol. Willie was like filling up my wine as I was floating in the pool. And I was like, okay, like I got to remind myself this is actually my life and I'm not on vacation right now. But it did take, I would say, like the first 2 weeks I just did nothing. I was like, I'm on vacation. And then I was like, okay, I gotta like figure out what my life looks like here. And I would say it took about like 2 weeks to finally feel like, okay, I'm living here and this isn't or sorry, 2 months to feel like this isn't a vacation anymore.
So what did that start looking like? And were you still hanging out by the pool? Like were you taking advantage of being
Oh,
outside?
I was sitting outside in the sun. Actually, I do it less now, sitting outside in the sun, but that first year I was definitely sunbathing like 30 minutes to an hour every single day, just going outside reading by the pool. That was like my jam. So definitely, I think I forced myself to walk in Seattle. It was like a non-negotiable. I was
Mm.
like, I have to do this for my mental health. And so I would, grab an umbrella and like bundle up and walk, and it was miserable. And so moving here, it's just night and day. It's like, wow, I can walk outside and I don't hate my life.
I think it's really interesting being in a cold place. So I mean, I would say being from New York, it's not like doom and gloom all the time, but when it's cold, it is fucking cold. And you
Yeah.
don't want to go outside. You don't want to walk. Or even just like being in New York City, there's not a whole lot of nature. Like if you trek to Central Park, depending on where you are, you can find
Yeah.
some grass and some trees and a pond, which is really nice. But I think it's different when it's in a natural space. Like one of my
Yeah.
favorite things about Arizona is just the fact that hiking is so easily
Accessible.
accessible. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and that's the same with Seattle as well. I mean, it's beautiful in the summertime and the hiking is crazy there. Most of the time though, you're having to do like an hour drive to get to the hiking. Here, I mean, we do a loop over in the mountains and it's a 5-minute drive. And so it's so easy to like just be in nature here. It's literally right there.
what's it feel like to you to get to be in nature?
Oh, I love it. I think it's super grounding. Like I get overstimulated really quickly by like life, and one of the best things for me to do is to walk. Like it's my favorite thing to do when my central nervous system is like out of whack. I'm like, I just need to go on a walk, and it's the easiest thing to do here. And then you get the sunshine on top of it. So
That
it's like two
serotonin kick.
wins.
Boom boom.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think sometimes people don't realize like how how simple it is to go from sympathetic, like high alert, to parasympathetic of
Yeah.
rest and digest mode. And it's sometimes it makes me think the same in terms of health and wellness as a whole. Like you need to strength train, you need to be on top of what you're eating, you need to sleep. It sounds so simple, but people just don't take action on these really simple things where it almost seems like this is impossible to get into good shape. And when it comes to being out in nature, it's like this stuff really can relax you if you take the time to go out there.
Yeah. I think it's just like any other habit, though. It's like one of those weird things. Like the mind is crazy. Like, you need to do it, but until you actually start owning your shit and like taking responsibility and doing it, you're not going to see the benefits of it. But I feel like once you do, then you're like, okay, I need to do that more often. Like for me, I don't know what you are like, but I have a non-negotiable of 3 mile, at least 3 miles. Lately, because it's so nice, we've been doing 3 miles in the morning and 3 miles at night. So I'm actually doing like 6 miles a day right now, but like non-negotiable 3 miles a day outside. That's what I always like, unless I'm injured, I'm doing it.
I love that. Right now, my non-negotiable is 10K steps.
Yeah.
And it's really nice right now because so I go into the desert and I would say from like September to September to May, you can go into the desert and it's cool. Like cool, not as in like the weather is cool. It's still hot here, but you're not gonna get fucked up with a rattlesnake. Whereas once we're in the summer months, it's like,
It's a little scary.
it's a
Yeah,
little scary
sketch.
to go in the desert. So it's a little bit harder to get all of those steps then. But yeah, right now, non-negotiable. I get those 10K steps and it feels so good for my body, right? And I understand what it's doing for my body. Right now I happen to be in a deficit. I'm in a weight loss phase and getting those steps is so great to increase the calorie burn in a very
Yes.
low stressful way. But I also just love being there for what it's doing for my mind. So, because I live in like the middle of nowhere and it's very rare I see anybody in the desert, I do weird shit.
What does that mean?
So
Are you
like
like frolicking,
yeah.
frolicking throughout the desert? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I put on like my woo woo like witchy kind of music. I have like a whole like folklore kind of playlist and I literally throw my arms out to the side like like I'm a bird flying. And I run through the desert, and sometimes I'll sing while I'm out there, and I just like prance around. And sometimes I record it and I like share it on Instagram, but a lot of times I'm not recording it. I'm just like doing it. And it's one of the most freeing
Yes.
things there is. Something else I love doing outside in Arizona. This was like never a thing until Arizona. I just like getting naked in my backyard.
Well, I can't do that now because I'm currently living in an apartment, but I definitely was doing that when we had a backyard.
Our walls are high enough where like nobody, I mean, I guess you could totally look in, but I don't have any neighbors
Just
who
be
I like
clear.
fear are trying to see what's going on. But I think there's also something like being able to be in like that primal state in like a safe environment has
Yeah.
also been like an interesting thing to explore out in Arizona. And this might be like even weirder. When I started going paddle boarding in Arizona, I don't know what came over me, but me and Tim will go out where it's just like us in the middle of the day, like nobody else. And I can't help myself. I just have to skinny dip. Like I need to be naked in the water. I don't know why, but it's one of those things where I feel like getting in nature, it helps you to connect to this part of yourself that you just can't connect to in other
Yeah.
environments.
For sure. I also feel like it helps me. Like if I feel stuck in my business, if I feel stuck with my thoughts, like I don't movement and getting out in nature just like helps me feel unstuck. Like I start to like I feel like my best content ideas come from when I'm walking and then I just text myself it. I'm like I have like full notes on like when I'm walking, just different ideas. So
Yeah.
it's something that really helps me with that as well.
What are you doing outside in nature? Is it primarily walking? Do you do anything else out in that space? Are you also getting naked in the lake, or is that just me?
Well, no, more the hikes we're doing are more so, I don't know how people would feel about us just being walking around naked, but mostly walking, hiking. We have been doing some biking, although I forced Willie to go on a 30-mile bike ride without we haven't biked in over, I don't know, maybe 2 years because we were in Seattle and his legs started cramping and it was like a whole like he could barely make it back to the apartment. It was really bad. So I was like, okay, 30 miles was probably too much for our first time. But what I really want to try, or I've done it before, but get back into mountain biking. I think mountain biking sounds so much fun. Willie thinks it sounds reckless, but I'm a little reckless. So I'm like, I really want to try it. So that's my goal for 2025 is to do some mountain biking. And then we do pickleball as well outside.
Which is really, really like the big thing now. I feel like it's rare that you meet anybody in the state of Arizona who isn't
I
pickleballing.
know. It's huge.
Yeah. And the mountain biking too, the trails that we go on where there are definitely more people and you're not just like bearing it all. There's a lot of bikes. There's a lot of bikes, there's a lot of
Yes.
dogs, there's just like a lot of people being out and about. I remember when we first came out to Arizona, that was one of our biggest draws. It was like we just want to be around people who want to be outside, people who want to be exercising. It just feels different.
It's like everyone's hobby here. I don't like know many people here who aren't enjoying going outside and doing some kind of activity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Nobody here is really just like stuck inside. I do remember when I was first researching Arizona though, there was one forum that I found on Reddit and they were like, "Don't go to Arizona, there's nothing to do." And somebody asked, "Well, what do you do?" And they were like, "I like to, stay inside and play video games." Like if that's your MO, Arizona's probably
Yeah,
like not high on the list, but if you're somebody who likes being outside and connecting to nature, I think it's one of the most incredible places to be. When I first came out here, I remember going up to Sedona, and
mm,
Sedona is
my
like
favorite.
known to be that woo woo spot. And I was kind of skeptical in the beginning. I had a couple friend take me and Tim up there, and they were talking about the vortexes. And I was like, what the fuck are you guys on? And we just like sat staring at these rocks. And it was so weird. But once I started to like open my mind, like, oh, maybe this isn't weird. Maybe this is normal. Maybe this is just something that like I've never experienced before and I need a little bit more of an open mind. I felt like going back the next time to Arizona not Arizona, going back to Sedona, it was a different experience. Have you ever been to that rock? It's called like,
Well, there's a bunch. So there's I did when my mom came out and visited me, like she came out maybe 2 weeks after we moved, and we did a trip, just the two of us to Sedona, and we did a vortex tour.
cool.
So they took us to all of the vortexes and they talked about how each one has their different types of energy. So we got to kind of like understand and learn. So it's not just like one rock. Well, the whole area is pretty much a vortex, but there's different areas you can go for different healing purposes and different energies you're looking for. So, me and Willie just like to hike around the areas, like different vortex areas, and feel kind of like the energy of each one. It's very interesting. Like the big one is, what is it, like the airport one? Do you know what I'm talking about? Where you go like up where
No.
the airport is, and that's where like one of the big, it's like there's a huge overlook. I
Oh,
didn't
yes,
really,
I do know what you're talking about. I've been
I
there.
felt like the energy there was a little anxiety for me. Like that energy wasn't as good. Like some of the other energies, like it was like just more my speed, which is totally like normal. Like sometimes you'll get there and the energy, like you'll feel the energy, but it's like, I don't know if this is the right energy for me. And then you'll go to a different vortex and you're like, okay, this feels better. But
That's
yeah.
my energy. Are you ready to start building strength but feel overwhelmed by complicated workouts and influencers on social media? Foundations is your answer. If you're new to strength training and want a simple, effective way to get stronger, build muscle, and drop body fat, Foundations was designed just for you. What you'll need to get started are just 3 kettlebells. That's it. These 3 kettlebells are all you need to unlock your strength, start building muscle, and start seeing real results. There's no fancy moves, no complicated routines, just the basics that will help you to progress safely and confidently. What you'll get when you join: simple, proven exercises where you will master foundational movements like squats, deadlifts, and presses that will give you strength and confidence. A progressive training program, step-by-step video and written guidance to help you improve no matter where you are starting from. A safe, effective training routine. You'll get to focus on form and build a body that's strong from the inside out. And the best part, it's DIY. You can start right away, no waiting around. You just buy the program today and you get to start building strength from the comfort of your home. You don't need to be fancy to get strong. You just need a solid foundation and the right approach. Foundations is perfect for the woman who is new to strength training and wants to take it at her own pace. She wants to feel empowered, she wants to feel strong, and she wants to feel more confident in her body. If you're ready to begin, visit www.colleenconlon.com for more details and grab your Foundations program today. Again, all you need are 3 kettlebells. I'll take care of the rest.
Yeah, I loved it. I love Sedona though. Like literally whenever me and Willie need a reset, we're like, let's go up to Sedona, do some hiking and just spend the night. It's the best place.
I remember going on a hike to, I don't know what it's called, but when you get to the end of it and you sit in this like big hole in this huge rock, it looks like you are looking out of a woman's vagina. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Okay, yes, yeah. That's on my list. I've done a couple of the cave hikes, but I haven't done that one. It's saved in my
It's
hikes because I want to
amazing.
do that one. Yeah.
I remember getting up in there, and this was definitely at a point in my life where there was a lot of emotional stuff going on. And I remember just getting into this like little crevice and just crying hysterically and not even knowing why am I crying. But it's one of those things where it just like hit me,
Yeah.
and then all of this emotion came out,
Yeah.
which was I like I don't know how to describe it, but if you're listening to this episode right now and you're just like, energies, what the fuck are these bitches talking about? I, I think part of it is, if you've never experienced like feeling these different things, there might be like a closed offness where you just need to be like, universe, share with me the woo woo. And I just start feeling this stuff differently in different areas of my body.
Exactly. Like, and you also have to like explore what that is. I'm like super sensitive to people's energy. Like, I
Mm.
can feel changes in people's energy. I really got into like understanding and wanting to learn more because I was like a couple years ago, I was almost like so overwhelmed by the energy happening in my body, but I didn't understand it. So I started listening and reading Joe Dispenza's book. He's like super into woo-woo energy, stuff like that. And that really like captured my attention of like understanding your energy. Like you talked about, where's it coming from? Is it your chest? Do you feel heat? Is it cool? Is it red? Like you almost like associate colors and stuff to the energy. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I didn't realize that you were into Joe Dispenza.
Oh my God, I love him.
I feel
I
like,
do it. We do his meditations all the time, me and
do you?
Willie. Yeah,
I
and I
don't know
read
how.
his whole book. His whole, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a huge book. And there's like a, I have a science background. So like I felt like the stuff he talked about scientifically was super interesting to me as well. But yeah, I love Joe Dispenza. I would love to do one of his like weekend meditation getaways, just fully engulf myself. That's like my ultimate goal.
I had a client who's been to multiple of those events, and she said it's the most incredible
Yeah.
thing. Wow, I
I
can't wait
like
to.
I want to do one with him in Sedona. That's the goal.
That would be sick. I remember that when I first started trying to figure out this energy stuff, because I was very sensitive as a kid. It's almost like, unless like you grow up with people who are kind of woo woo in your life, which, I grew up in like a very religious household, like talking about like spiritual stuff that it's like non-religious related was kind of like a shunned upon
Yeah.
thing. I just didn't really understand what was going on. So for me, before I started like researching different books or different people on social media, it was really just kind of noticing like, well, what am I feeling in my body? Where does it feel like this is coming from? And it just kind of like led me to like connecting to what these feelings are, if even if I couldn't explain what
Yeah.
they are.
Well, I also think that like when we're really young, teachers and people are like, "What are you feeling?" Like learn your feelings, learn your emotions. And then I feel like you hit like middle school, high school, and it's just like no one talks about it anymore. And like therapy wasn't really a big thing for us growing up. Like it's definitely more and more people are doing therapy now to like understand their emotions and feelings. But like back then it wasn't really a thing. So you just kind of like push those emotions and feelings down in that energy. You're just like, okay, we're just going to push it down. I'm not going to acknowledge it.
Yeah. And then it gets kind of dangerous because you like either
As an adult,
explode
you're like,
or
I don't know how to handle this. That's what I would do because that's like the kind of background I came from my family. I would just see red when I got super emotional and I'd be like, I'd blow up and I was like, okay, I need to figure out where this is coming from because clearly this isn't normal.
yeah, anybody who can relate to what's going on right now and hearing this stuff, Hannah, I'm sure you will agree with me. One of the best things you can do is get into therapy and get in with somebody who understands
Yeah.
energy and emotions to figure that kind of stuff out.
Absolutely. Because I think we just, especially men, but just us humans in general, you just push it down. It doesn't feel good and you just want to push it down instead of going through and actually feeling it and getting to the other end. Because it's one of those things where it's like, your feelings aren't going to last forever, but a lot of us just, we don't want to feel it. We're like, I don't want to feel this way. So I'm just going to push it down. I'm going to pretend like it doesn't exist. And
I
that's not healthy.
I also find sometimes people, and I've experienced this myself, where it's like, okay, I know this is something that like I should go work on, but I'm too busy.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to work on it because I have other things that I would rather do with my time.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
not good
No,
either.
it's kind of like what we talked about, like, owning your shit. And if you really like have goals, you need to go to the gym, you need to strength train, you need to manage your calories. Walking is very helpful, like you've talked about with your journey right now. It's like you have to, if you have a goal, you have to take actions towards that goal. And, we just have to own our actions.
And that includes just getting out into nature, taking in some of that sunlight, and just
Oh
being
yeah.
able to like take a breath and chill.
Yeah.
That's one of the things in New York. I was always just on high fucking alert where I couldn't relax. I don't
Mhm.
know if you ever experienced that with where you were at in Washington, but it never felt like, okay, now we have a moment to relax. And I think part of that had to do with the time of my life that I was there. Like I was hustling in order
Yeah.
to be a fitness professional and be able to afford rent, where it was like you have to be on the go, 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 go all of the time if you want to be here doing what it is you're doing. So it never really felt like you can relax. I remember I used to like used to take yoga classes just to fall asleep and relax. Like have somebody tell me, "Okay, you can breathe," and like not even do the practice and just clonk right out on the floor.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, I do feel like Seattle, there's a lot of places you can go to get the nature you want. Like we have big parks, kind of like New York, probably easier to get to as well. But it's interesting because ever since I've moved to Arizona, when I go back to Seattle, I have that energy. Like it's hard for me to relax. I just kind of have like a negative energy towards it. And then whenever I come back to Arizona, it's like this just release of energy and I just feel better here.
Mm.
Which is so interesting because I lived in Seattle my whole life. You would think like, oh, this feels like home when I go back. Like it's gonna feel good, but it doesn't. I could
Sometimes
never see myself moving back.
I could never go back either. And sometimes, people have made comments to me like, "Oh, but don't you, miss family? Don't you miss like where you're from?" And I mean, yeah, I think everybody kind of misses home or people to an extent, but it's like, do I care more about me being my happiest self, or do I care more about being around people and familiar places where it's like
Yeah,
I could be in this, really great place and just get a plane ticket and fly back there versus doing the opposite where maybe I get to fly to Arizona once or a few times a year, you know?
for sure. And like I love my family and I miss them and it's nice to get to see them once in a while, but how often are you seeing them in person when you even
Yeah.
live there? It's like as adults, let's be honest, you're like scheduling in your calendar 3 months in advance when you can hang out with someone.
Yeah. So why not put yourself and your immediate family
Yeah,
at the forefront?
for sure. Yeah, and I would say it was like the scariest thing to just, I mean, if background, like we bought our house without seeing it in person. We FaceTimed with a realtor. So we drove here being like, holy shit, we just bought a house and we're driving to it right now. Never been here. It was like terrifying and like scary. And it was, but at the end of the day, it was the best decision we ever made. Like I've never been so happy. I think like stepping outside of your comfort zone, I think everyone should move away from their main hometown at some point in their life. I
Yeah.
think
Why?
it's a good I think it's a good experience. I think stepping out of your comfort zone helps you grow as a human and you just get to see something outside of what you're used to. And it's like it helps you just your perspective on life, I feel.
Yeah. You can always go back if you don't like it, but
If yeah,
you'll
exactly.
you'll never know if you don't try.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Hannah, as we get ready to wrap up this episode, do you have anything to share with our listeners in regards to getting out into nature for the sake of their overall wellness?
No, I just think it's something that we need to do more of as a society. Like, I think it's just so important. I know I have a lot of clients in Seattle actually, and I'm always trying to, a lot of them don't want to go outside. And I totally get that. So I do feel like grateful that we have sunshine all the time in the winter. So, it makes us want to go outside. But if you can even just spend 5 minutes outside, just get an umbrella, walk around the neighborhood, it really does help ground you. That's something that I've just noticed from my own experience.
Hmm. Thanks, Hannah. Thanks for tuning in. If this episode hit home, don't forget to leave a rating and review. Women are stronger together, so share this with a woman who you want to see rise. When we embrace positive takeaways, we level up, and when we share them, we change the world. Follow us on Instagram at the Dangerous Women Podcast and let us know what you want to hear next. And remember, dangerous women redefine wellness and the world. So be fierce, be authentic, be dangerous.